Welcome to Sleepy History Stories. Tonight, we drift gently into the quiet world of winter festivals long ago, exploring how people gave gifts in history and what those moments of exchange felt like inside ancient homes, villages, and gathering places. Imagine a cold evening settling over a small settlement, the air crisp and still, with frost clinging softly to wood, stone, and earth. Smoke rises slowly from hearth fires, carrying the scent of burning wood and simmering food, while dim lantern light glows through narrow windows. This is the season when time seems to slow and human connection becomes especially important. In ancient societies, gift-giving during winter festivals was not about abundance or display. It was about reassurance, continuity, and shared survival. As days grew shorter and nights longer, people marked the turning of the year with simple offerings meant to strengthen bonds within families and communities. A gift might be a small bundle of dried fruit, a piece of woven cloth, a carved wooden object, or a portion of stored grain. These items carried meaning far beyond their material value. They represented care, foresight, and the quiet promise that no one would face the hardest season alone. Preparation for these gifts often began weeks or even months earlier. Wool was spun slowly during long evenings, hands moving rhythmically as stories were shared near the fire. Clay vessels were shaped and fired to hold oils, honey, or preserved foods. Children helped gather nuts, berries, or evergreen branches, learning early that giving was woven into the rhythm of seasonal life. In ancient Rome, small gifts called strenae were exchanged during winter celebrations, often made from natural materials like figs, dates, or branches believed to carry good fortune. These offerings were modest, symbolic, and deeply rooted in tradition. Winter markets took on a softer, quieter character during festival seasons. There was no rush or urgency. People walked slowly between stalls, their footsteps muted by snow, mud, or packed earth. Vendors displayed carefully made items, not in excess, but with intention. A hand-carved spoon, a woven belt, or a small pouch of spices might be chosen after long consideration, each gift reflecting thoughtfulness rather than status. In many early European cultures, handmade gifts were preferred, as they carried the time and presence of the giver within them. Gift exchanges often took place indoors, sheltered from the cold and rain. Homes glowed with firelight, walls holding warmth while wind moved quietly outside. Families gathered closely, seated on benches or mats, passing gifts from hand to hand with calm smiles and gentle words. There was no spectacle. The moment itself was enough. In ancient China, winter festivals included the exchange of food gifts such as rice cakes or preserved fruits, reinforcing family ties and marking the transition toward a new seasonal cycle. These offerings emphasized nourishment, balance, and shared well-being. One interesting historical detail is that in many ancient cultures, gifts were not always exchanged on a single day. Instead, they were given gradually throughout the festival period, allowing generosity to unfold slowly. This practice reduced pressure and allowed meaning to build over time, reinforcing patience and reflection during the darkest weeks of the year. Gift-giving was woven gently into daily life, rather than standing apart from it. As you imagine these scenes, picture the textures and sounds that surrounded them. The crackle of a fire, the soft rustle of cloth, the muted clink of pottery, and the steady rhythm of winter rain or wind outside. These moments were intimate and grounded, shaped by necessity and care rather than excess. Gifts were reminders of connection, continuity, and the quiet strength found in shared tradition. If you are listening now, gently comment what time it is and where you are listening from. The quiet season continues, and with it comes the slow unfolding of winter rituals that shape how gifts are chosen, prepared, and shared. In many ancient cultures, winter festivals were not moments of interruption, but gentle extensions of everyday life. The same hands that tended fields, shaped tools, or prepared meals now turned their attention toward creating something meant for another person. This shift did not feel abrupt. It felt natural, guided by the shortening days and the need for warmth, reassurance, and human closeness. Inside ancient homes, preparation often took place during the calmest hours of the day. Wool was carded and spun near the hearth, its fibers catching the warm glow of firelight. Cloth was woven slowly, thread by thread, each movement steady and unhurried. A scarf, belt, or simple blanket might take weeks to complete, making the finished gift a quiet record of time and care. In many early societies, textiles were among the most valued gifts, not because they were rare, but because they required patience and skill. One historical fact is that in Iron Age Europe, woven cloth was frequently exchanged during winter gatherings as a sign of trust and social connection, since producing it required long hours indoors during cold months. Food gifts were equally meaningful. As winter approached, families carefully set aside portions of their preserved harvest. Dried fruits, salted meats, fermented vegetables, honey, and grains were stored with attention and foresight. When these items were later shared as gifts, they represented more than nourishment. They reflected planning, restraint, and the willingness to give from limited resources. In ancient Mesopotamia, records show that food offerings were exchanged during seasonal festivals, reinforcing social bonds and ensuring communal stability during times when fresh food was scarce. The act of wrapping gifts was often simple, yet thoughtful. Cloth scraps, woven reeds, leaves, or small baskets served as coverings. These materials were chosen not for decoration alone, but for usefulness. A cloth used to wrap a gift might later be repurposed, continuing its life beyond the moment of exchange. This practical approach reflected a worldview in which nothing was wasted, and every object carried multiple meanings. In ancient Japan, early forms of cloth wrapping emphasized respect and care, a tradition that evolved gradually over centuries but remained rooted in calm, deliberate gestures. Children participated quietly in these preparations, learning through observation rather than instruction. They gathered evergreen branches, polished small stones, or helped dry fruits near the fire. Their involvement taught them that giving was not sudden or performative. It was something that grew slowly, shaped by attention and shared effort. In many early societies, children were given small tasks related to gift preparation as a way of teaching responsibility and awareness of others. Winter festivals themselves unfolded gently. There were shared meals, low voices, and moments of stillness between activities. Gifts were often exchanged during these quieter intervals, perhaps after eating or during storytelling. The timing mattered. Giving was not rushed. It was placed carefully within the rhythm of the gathering, allowing space for acknowledgement and gratitude without excess emotion. In ancient Greece, winter celebrations honoring household gods included small offerings exchanged within families, emphasizing continuity and domestic harmony rather than spectacle. Another interesting historical detail is that in some cultures, gifts were deliberately modest to avoid creating imbalance or obligation. In early Scandinavian societies, winter gifts were meant to strengthen alliances and friendships, but they were carefully chosen to remain appropriate, reinforcing equality rather than hierarchy. This restraint helped preserve social harmony during a season when cooperation was essential for survival. As the night deepened, homes filled with the soft sounds of conversation, fire, and weather outside. Gifts rested quietly nearby, waiting for the right moment to be passed from one person to another. The atmosphere was calm, grounded, and reflective, shaped by the understanding that winter required patience and mutual care. Imagine sitting within one of these spaces, the air warm and still, the scent of food and wood smoke lingering softly. Around you, objects shaped by human hands wait quietly, each carrying intention and time. Gift giving here is not an event. It is a continuation of life itself, moving slowly, deliberately, and with quiet meaning. As winter festivals unfolded across ancient landscapes, the spaces where gifts were exchanged carried as much meaning as the gifts themselves. Indoors, rooms were arranged carefully to welcome others, even when space was limited. Benches were drawn closer to the hearth. Mats were laid neatly on floors, and low tables were cleared to make room for shared food and quiet conversation. The air inside these homes felt dense, with warmth and familiarity, holding the gentle scents of cooked grains, dried herbs, and burning wood. Rain, wind, or snow moved softly outside, but within these walls time slowed and softened. Gift-giving often followed moments of shared stillness. After a meal, when bowls were set aside and hands warmed near the fire, someone might rise slowly and retrieve a small object prepared earlier. There was no announcement or urgency. The gift was offered simply, sometimes with a few quiet words, sometimes with none at all. In many ancient cultures, silence itself was part of the exchange. It allowed meaning to settle without interruption. In early Celtic winter gatherings, archaeological and literary evidence suggests that gifts were exchanged during communal feasts, often near the hearth, reinforcing the idea that warmth and generosity belonged together. The types of gifts varied by region, but their purpose remained similar. In agricultural societies, tools or tool parts were sometimes exchanged, repaired, or shared during winter festivals. A sharpened blade, a carved handle, or a repaired basket represented care and cooperation. These were not merely objects, but extensions of shared labor and mutual reliance. One interesting historical detail is that in some ancient Near Eastern communities, winter festivals included the redistribution of stored goods among households, ensuring that no family faced scarcity alone during the coldest months. In coastal regions, gifts often reflected the sea. Dried fish, shells, nets, or rope were exchanged among families who depended on one another for safety and sustenance. These items carried the quiet understanding that survival was collective. Inland gifts leaned toward grains, wool, pottery, or wood. Each object reflected the local environment and the rhythms of daily life. What mattered was not novelty, but usefulness and thoughtfulness. Winter festivals also carried spiritual meaning, and gifts were sometimes offered not only to people, but to household spirits, ancestors, or deities. Small portions of food, oil, or drink were placed near hearths, doorways, or outdoor shrines. These offerings were made quietly, without spectacle, acknowledging forces believed to watch over the home and community. In ancient Rome, households made offerings during Saturnalia, blending social gift exchange with ritual gestures meant to restore balance and goodwill for the coming year. These acts reinforce the idea that generosity extended beyond human relationships into the broader world. Children observed these moments closely. They learned that gifts were not rewards, but expressions of care and continuity. In some cultures, children were given small symbolic gifts, such as carved figures or pieces of fruit, to teach them gratitude and restraint. The act of receiving was as important as giving, requiring patience, attention, and respect. One historical observation from early Chinese sources notes that winter gift exchanges within families were used to reinforce hierarchy and harmony, with elders giving first, setting the tone for calm and orderly celebration. The atmosphere during these exchanges remained subdued. There was no rush to open or display gifts. Often items were set aside to be used later, extending their meaning beyond the moment. A new cloth might be folded carefully and saved. A food gift might be incorporated into a shared meal the following day. This delayed use emphasized continuity rather than instant gratification, a rhythm well suited to the long, quiet stretch of winter. Outside, the natural world remained present through sound and sensation. Wind pressed gently against walls. Rain traced slow paths along roofs and eaves. Snow muted distant movement. These elements framed the indoor experience, reminding those inside of the shelter they shared and the importance of maintaining harmony within it. Gifts, in this context, were anchors of reassurance, small but steady affirmations that community endured even in darkness and cold. Picture yourself seated near a hearth, light flickering softly across faces and walls. Around you, hands move slowly, passing objects shaped by time and intention. There is no hurry, no expectation beyond presence itself. In this moment, gift-giving is not an interruption to life. It is life unfolding quietly, season by season. As winter festivals continued through long nights and shortened days, gift-giving extended beyond the walls of individual homes and into shared community spaces. Courtyards, meeting halls, and sheltered outdoor areas became quiet gathering points where people moved slowly, wrapped in heavy cloth and warmed by shared fires. The atmosphere was hushed and respectful, shaped by the understanding that winter demanded cooperation rather than display. Gifts exchanged in these spaces carried communal meaning, reinforcing bonds not just between individuals, but across entire villages and extended families. In many early civilizations, leaders and elders participated in gift-giving as a way to maintain balance and reassurance. These were not grand gestures. An elder might distribute small portions of stored grain, oil, or cloth to households, acknowledging shared responsibility and mutual dependence. One interesting historical fact is that in ancient Mesopotamian cities, temple storehouses sometimes released food or goods during winter festivals, redistributing resources to stabilize the population during the harshest season. This practice linked generosity with governance, emphasizing care rather than authority. Craft guilds and working groups also exchanged gifts quietly during winter gatherings. A potter might offer a carefully shaped bowl to a carpenter, while receiving a small wooden tool in return. And these exchanges were practical and symbolic, reinforcing trust and collaboration that would continue into the next agricultural or building season. The gifts themselves were often used immediately or integrated into daily routines, allowing generosity to persist long after the festival ended. There was no separation between celebration and work. Both flowed together naturally. Music, storytelling, and quiet ritual often accompanied these exchanges. Voices remained low. Instruments were simple. The focus stayed on shared presence rather than performance. Gifts might be passed during pauses in storytelling or after communal meals, moments when attention was already soft and open. In early Germanic winter gatherings, gift exchange was closely tied to oath-making and friendship renewal, reinforcing long-term relationships rather than fleeting emotion. These practices were designed to stabilize communities during months when isolation and scarcity could otherwise create tension. Women often played a central role in organizing and guiding gift exchanges, especially within households and extended family networks. Their knowledge of stored goods, textile production, and seasonal needs shaped what was given and when. A woven cloth offered at the right moment could mean warmth for weeks to come. A portion of preserved food could ease anxiety during uncertain weather. These decisions were thoughtful and calm, rooted in experience rather than impulse. Children observed these broader exchanges with quiet attention. They learned that giving extended beyond family and that generosity carried responsibility. Participation might involve carrying small items, delivering bundles to neighbors, or helping elders organize shared meals. These actions taught patience, awareness, and restraint. One historical detail noted in early Nordic sources is that children were included in winter gift visits, specifically to teach them social obligation and kindness, embedding these values early through lived experience rather than instruction. As the festival days progressed, the rhythm of giving remained unhurried. Gifts were not exchanged all at once. They appeared gradually, allowing the sense of connection to unfold slowly. This pacing matched the season itself, where long nights encouraged reflection rather than excitement. The calm repetition of shared meals, quiet conversations, and steady generosity created a sense of continuity that carried people through winter with reassurance. Outside, the natural world remained close. Snow settled quietly. Rain traced soft lines across stone and wood. Wind moved gently through trees and along rooftops. Inside shared spaces, warmth and human presence formed a counterbalance. Gifts rested briefly in hands, then found their place in daily life, extending the spirit of the festival far beyond any single moment. If you are still listening with me now, gently comment a heart emoji to let me know you are here, resting quietly with this story. As winter festivals moved deeper into the season, the meaning of gift-giving became even quieter and more inward. The excitement of gathering softened into a steady calm, and the exchanges that followed were shaped by familiarity and trust rather than ceremony. Homes grew quieter as nights lengthened, and gifts were often given during ordinary moments, folded gently into daily routines rather than set apart from them. A wrapped bundle might be placed beside a sleeping mat, or a small vessel left near the hearth to be discovered later, allowing generosity to feel natural and unforced. In many ancient cultures, gifts given late in the winter season focused on endurance and comfort. Woolen items, additional firewood, or preserved foods were shared quietly with those who needed them most. These offerings were not announced. They were simply given, often without expectation of acknowledgement. One historical detail noted in early medieval Europe is that winter gift exchanges sometimes took the form of quiet assistance, where neighbors left goods at doorways during storms, ensuring support without disrupting dignity. This approach reflected a deep understanding of humility and care. Indoors, daily life continued at a gentle pace. Fires were tended carefully to preserve fuel. Meals were prepared slowly, often stretching remaining stores with patience and creativity. A gifted item might immediately become part of these routines. A new bowl held warm soup. A woven cloth was placed across shoulders during cold evenings. A carved tool eased a familiar task. In this way, gifts did not interrupt life. They merged seamlessly with it, becoming part of the rhythm of survival and comfort. Spiritual meanings remained closely tied to these exchanges. In many households, a portion of gifted food was shared with the hearth fire or set aside briefly in gratitude, acknowledging forces believed to protect the home. In ancient East Asian traditions, winter gifts were sometimes accompanied by quiet gestures of respect toward ancestors, reinforcing continuity between past and present. These moments were not dramatic. They were still and reflective, marked by silence rather than words. Children continued to learn through observation. They noticed how gifts were handled carefully, how nothing was rushed or wasted. They saw adults pause before giving, choosing the right moment, the right object, the right person. One historical observation from early agrarian societies is that children were taught restraint during winter festivals, receiving fewer gifts than at other times, reinforcing patience and awareness of scarcity. This lesson remained with them long after the season passed. The physical environment shaped these experiences deeply. Rain, snow, or wind outside reinforced the value of warmth and shelter within. The sound of weather against walls and roofs reminded everyone of shared vulnerability. Inside, the exchange of even the smallest item felt significant against this backdrop. A simple gift could transform an evening, adding warmth not only to the body, but to the shared sense of safety and belonging. As the festival days gradually thinned and ordinary winter routines resumed, the presence of gifts lingered quietly. They did not demand attention. They continued to serve, comfort, and reassure. Their meaning unfolded slowly, day after day, reinforcing bonds long after the last gathering ended. In this way, ancient gift-giving was never confined to a single moment. It extended gently through time, much like winter itself. Picture a quiet home now, fire glowing softly, weather pressing gently against the walls. A small object rests nearby, shaped by human hands, placed with intention. It asks nothing. It simply remains steady and calm, part of a shared life moving slowly through the cold season. As winter festivals drew quietly to their close, ancient homes settled into a deeper stillness. The rhythm of giving soft, not because generosity faded, but because it had already taken root. Gifts were no longer new objects waiting to be unwrapped or exchanged. They had become part of daily life, woven into routines so gently that their presence felt natural, almost invisible. A gifted blanket warmed many nights. A shared store of grain sustained meals long after the festival ended. In this way, winter generosity continued without needing ceremony. Inside these homes, life slowed even further. The air was thick with warmth and smoke, and light moved lazily across walls as fires burned low and steady. Families sat close together, repairing tools, weaving fibers, or simply resting. Gifts given earlier in the season revealed their full meaning now, not through excitement, but through quiet usefulness. One historical detail observed in ancient Roman and early Germanic households is that winter gifts were valued most not at the moment of exchange, but weeks later when their usefulness proved enduring. Longevity mattered more than appearance. Spiritual reflection often accompanied this final phase of winter festivals. In many cultures, the end of communal celebrations marked a return to introspection. Offerings once shared openly were now internalized as gratitude. In ancient East Asian traditions, it was common to clean indoor spaces carefully at the close of winter rituals, honoring both the gifts received and the effort behind them. This act symbolized respect for balance, renewal, and care for the home itself. Children grew quieter, too. The lessons of the season settled gently into memory. They remembered who shared when times were lean, who gave without asking, who noticed needs before they were spoken. These memories shaped their understanding of community far more deeply than any single object. Anthropologists studying early village societies note that winter gift traditions played a crucial role in teaching empathy, patience, and restraint, values that supported survival across generations. Outside, the weather continued its steady presence. Rain tapped softly against roofs. Cold winds moved through bare branches. Yet indoors there was a sense of reassurance. The walls held, the fire endured. The gifts, now familiar, remained close at hand. Even silence felt generous, offering rest after weeks of gathering and preparation. As the season eased forward, ancient people did not rush toward what came next. They allowed winter to finish at its own pace. The final days were marked by quiet continuity rather than celebration. A shared meal, a warm corner, a tool placed back in its familiar spot. Gift-giving had done its work, strengthening bonds without calling attention to itself. Now, imagine yourself resting within such a space. The sound of weather outside is distant and gentle. Inside, the air is warm, the light low, the moment unhurried. Everything needed is already present. Nothing more is required. Thank you for spending this time here, moving slowly through history, through winter homes, and through the quiet traditions of giving. May this calm linger with you as the night continues, steady and unbroken, like the soft rhythm of rain against ancient walls.